Peace be upon you, friends. This story is about a handsome and beautiful young man who was born in the Roman Empire 50 years after the departure of Hazrat Jesus, peace be upon him, from this world. The mistake or sin of this boy was that his appearance closely resembled the Roman Emperor Nero's wife Sabina from that era. Nero was a figure who, in history, is infamous and notorious, only second to emperors in cruelty and barbarity. This Emperor Nero was so advanced in cruelty and debauchery that he had even built his own arena in Rome to satisfy his lust for bloodshed. In terms of sexual depravity, he had reached such heights that his illicit relationships even extended to his own mother Agrippina. His mother Agrippina not only looked after his harem but also supplied any concubines or maids to Emperor Nero according to his desires. Furthermore, Nero had a penchant for young handsome boys and eunuchs. The people of the empire were fed up with Nero's tyranny and hedonism beyond measure. Sometimes, he would lay his hands on the holy women known as Vestal Virgins, and at other times, he would publicly disgrace the wife of a minister or a military officer. His intention was to torment every woman with the destructive deeds and wickedness of Nero. In the year 62 AD, he met a woman named Sabina, an incredibly beautiful woman, who was the wife of Apothos, one of Nero's ministers. Nero had given this woman to his brother as a governorship in a distant region and then divorced her. He married Sabina himself, and Nero's mother, Agrippina, was not pleased with this marriage at all. Therefore, Nero also killed his own mother Agrippina, and completely immersing himself in his love for Poppaea Sabina. Historians say that this was Nero's first and last love, which gave him a chance to mend his ways. Nero would bring his queen, Sabina, to the court, taking her on foreign trips, showing off all her splendor. But even this beautiful woman could not escape Nero's madness and wickedness. Only 3 years had passed when one day, Nero became so enraged with Sabina that he delivered a powerful kick to her abdomen. Sabina was pregnant at the time, and due to Nero's kick, she died on the spot. Nero had committed this act in his fit of anger, but for a long time, he couldn't free himself from the memories of his beloved wife. Beautiful girls from different parts of the world were brought in, and they were introduced into his harem. But none of them caught Nero's eye until one day, during a royal parade, Nero's gaze fell upon a young and handsome lad. This lad was none other than the spitting image of his late wife, Poppaea Sabina. In Nero's eyes, this young man completely changed his life. Who was this lad? Was he a free man or a slave? What was his real name? History remains completely silent on this matter. Nero took him to his royal palace and named him Sporus. First, he transformed him into a eunuch, and then dressed him in women's clothing and adorned him with jewelry, presenting him to the world. In the year 67 AD, Emperor Nero held a grand and lavish ceremony for his marriage to Sporus, attended by the high-ranking officials of the empire. This is where Sporus' tragic story begins. Nero always kept him by his side, taking him to the markets of Rome and even to distant regions, wherever he went. He would subject him to humiliation in front of the world and inflict violence on his body whenever he wished. This was a time when homosexuality was rampant in the Roman Empire, especially among the military, and the regions where the army was stationed. These people would not only target women with their barbarity but also the men. However, the sexual excesses of the Roman men were so great that they not only suppressed their desires but also refrained from rebelling against the Roman army. A similar act was carried out by Emperor Nero towards Sporus. He transformed a healthy young man into a eunuch, forcing him to become a woman, and subsequently, he was subjected to the degradation of his emotions in the crowded courts and marketplaces. With time, Nero had become insatiable for the attention of the Roman masses and elite. And when his actions reached the ears of the people of Rome, the nobles and the commoners alike, Nero had become intolerable. When his deeds came to light, the people of Rome, including the ministers and the clergy, thirsted for his blood. Revolts and uprisings against him began to emerge in various cities and towns, and Nero, along with some of his loyalists, resorted to violence to save their lives. Nero was afraid that if he were captured by the people, they would subject him to a brutal and painful death, with no regard even for his corpse. Consequently, he first instructed his loyalists to dig a grave for himself, and then he ordered a servant to thrust a dagger into his own throat. Nero departed from this world on that day. However, his male spouse, Sporus, could not find solace even after his death. Succeeding Nero, Caesar Vitellius forced Sporus to dress as a woman in the grand arena of Rome, where he was subjected to a harrowing ordeal. He was gang-raped by gladiators and witnessed by the entire city of Rome. Tragically, this young man named Sporus, who had already endured so much torture in his short life, took his own life before entering the Roman arena. At the time of his death, Sporus was barely 20 years old. Despite being titled as the Queen of Rome, his life proved to be even more agonizing than that of a slave. It is said that Sporus despised his own face to such an extent that he often sought solitude, spending hours alone, scratching it. Queen Sabina's face was the reason for his abduction, emasculation, and the enduring physical and psychological torment till his death. Sporus' story is still one of the saddest stories in Europe.